I worried this would happen. The problem with a negative result, i.e. one that doesn't find what was being tested for, is that people immediately assume that you've done something wrong with the testing. If I was to say, hey guys, this texture streaming update increased my frame rates by 20%, then that would have been accepted without question. But because I said it didn't change anything, not only do people not watch the video because it sounds boring, but of the people who do, a lot of you immediately assume that there must have been something wrong with the test in some way, since from it I've received hundreds of, maybe well-intentioned, but quite annoying suggestions for why my test was wrong. Just for the record, it was over on Reddit where people were claiming that it was improving their frame rates, and maybe it did for them, but when it didn't improve mine, nor the maximums nor the minimums, suddenly, according to the comments I got, it was the frame times that mattered, and hence my testing proved insufficient. To get you up to speed, CSGO's got a new texture streaming beta, which I tested on my low-powered Ryzen 2 200G system to see if it would improve performance. I didn't find a difference. So just for you, I did it again, but with a few changes. First, I underclocked my RAM to 2133 MHz, since I was told that 3200 was too fast for texture streaming to make a difference. Second, I only tested it with a single stick of 8GB, since that's the least I can get and it will bottleneck the system as much as possible. Third, you guys said that the Ryzen 2 200G's onboard graphics weren't suitable because it used system memory, so I installed the slowest graphics card I could find and used that instead. Unfortunately, my 12-year-old passively cooled Radeon 4670 with half a gig of RAM has finally died, so I had to use a Radeon 250 instead. This graphics card is about the same performance as a Radeon 7750, which itself is a mid-range graphics card from 8 years ago. And even back then, I quote, "The Radeon 7750 is not a fast graphics card." Unfortunately, mine's the 2GB model. It would have been better were it the more limited 1GB version instead. But then I thought to myself, wait, even the old graphics cards I've recently picked up on eBay for £60 have had at least 4GB of RAM, so there's no excuse to have less than 2 these days. And last, I swapped out the SSD for a hard drive to really slow down how quickly it can load textures. It took literally a whole day just to install and to update Windows on it. It's torture, and if you're still running Windows on one, then please get an SSD instead. They're also cheap these days. So, on my hard drive powered operating system, artificially nerfed RAM, and the slowest graphics card I have that still works, I tested to see if texture streaming made a difference. I used high settings at 1080p. To really make those textures as big as I could, I ran each test 3 times, restarting between every run, which, on a hard drive, is a painfully slow process. I forgot the days when the longest part of loading your PC up was after it had reached the desktop, on a fresh Windows installation as well. It took 6 minutes to reach CSGO's main menu, at which point another painfully long loading time could begin. But I did it, and these are the results of the benchmark. Yeah. Turns out that CSGO is a remarkably consistent game. All 6 of my runs managed the same average, minimum and maximum frame rates. Had I not seen different decimal endings, even I would have thought I had done something wrong. I even tested the frame times. The 1% minimums were almost identical, and the 0.1% minimums were ever so slightly worse when texture streaming was enabled, but only by a tiny bit. The second test I did was on Sirocco, doing the same route as I've done dozens of times already. Yes, there probably is a bit of variance between the runs, but as you can see from these results, it didn't exactly make much of a change, did it? This time we even see that on one of the runs with texture streaming enabled, the maximum frame rate is 1 FPS higher than on the others. How exciting. But not as exciting as this. When looking at the frame times, the 0.1% minimums were consistently higher with texture streaming enabled. Most of the time, it makes no difference, but on those odd occasions when it does stutter, it'll stutter worse. At about 66 milliseconds instead of 56, and only in the 0.1% minimums, it's hardly noticeable. But it is there. There was a system restart between each of these results, so there's still a possibility that this change was from my low-power PC getting marginally hotter as the testing progressed, and not because texture streaming makes it slower. The more I look at this result, the more I want to test it on other maps to see if they'd be the same. Maybe I'll try it later and will post my findings in the comments section. But let's be real about what we're seeing here. Now that I'm using an artificially nerfed system, scanning the 0.1% minimums for minor changes, even though I've found them, I wonder how much value these results have to the average person anymore. It's certainly not something you'd feel in gameplay. I wonder if texture streaming isn't meant to make a difference just yet. Maybe it's here to prepare CSGO for another update that will make it more worthwhile. Half-Life Alyx got its editing tools rolled out the other day, and with rumours of Source 2 for CSGO floating about, maybe this is what this update's all about. I don't know. I'll wait and see, and I suggest you do too. I feel I've done my bit. If you think there's some way in which texture streaming could improve performance, then by all means, test it how you see fit and let me know. At the end of the day, I want to know the truth. It's just I feel like the last 2 days of my life could have been better spent.